Hello and welcome everybody to Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet. And if you notice from the lack of horrible interference stuff in these corners, I think I've sorted the green screen. So also new merch, not merch, it's other people's merch. It's Into the AM t-shirts. I treated myself from Squid Mars video, but anyway, completely irrelevant for tonight. So good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about the new Airfix Jaguar, but from a building point of view. So I've built mine. I've also built the 1994 tool. So I built them side by side. So that video will come out, if I can get all the editing done, fingers crossed, Saturday. So you can see the comparison between those. But I thought I'd get some other people into the stream tonight who have built it. So let me introduce Luke from Mach Models. Good evening, Luke.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks. How are you? How's your week?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's been a bit of a chaotic week, but coming to an end, of course, because we have the nice long weekend, which is
yes,
always a lovely thing. Yeah, exactly.
And we also have the Airfix man himself. It's Mos from Mos Models.
The Airfix man, that's a new one.
It's not new.
It's good kit. It's a very good kit, isn't it? To be fair, I think it's their. Well, can you say their best one yet? I think you can. I think you can clearly say that. It's just the way it goes together is so clever, and I know they kept the plastic hidden from us for so long. We saw the kits built up. We never actually saw the sprues, did we? Until like within a week of release, and it opened up some interesting design choices on how to put it together. Indeed.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I have made notes because I'm going to take a counterpoint to you, Mos. I don't think it's the best kit they've ever made.
Okay.
So I think there were a couple of things that were. Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But firstly, now everybody is here, let me just say hello to everybody. So we've got quite a full house so far, and probably more to come in as people usually drift in throughout the first half an hour or so. So we've got a lot of the usual suspects. So we have David Markey, we have Maria Saliba, Danny Gable, welcome. We've got myself. I've said hello a couple of times there. Got Blank Skunk Works, Stuart, Pray for the Snail. Not seen that name before, so welcome. James Carnahan, John Christmas, got John Howick. Welcome, John. Good to see you. Stuart, did I say Stuart already? Possibly. Go for it painting. What do we have? Paul Wiltshire Models, Little Things Junkie. Pete McDubbs, Bill, BS1WL, which I've more or less got what used to saying. Drew, good evening. Graham Bull, Craig, good to see you. Adrian Hook, Dave Fairclough, Danny Gable. I think I've mentioned pretty much everyone now. And that brings us pretty much to the present. Oh, Simon's Modelling Shed. I missed you out there. Sorry. And Steve's Gaming. Charles Flaherty. I've probably murdered that, but from Rome, GA USA. Wow. That's like Paris, Texas. Oh, and you can probably hear my dog barking outside for some reason. So, good welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight, this midweek model meet. So, I think of the three of us. So, Luke, you actually built two.
Yeah.
and he managed to crack them out before anybody, any of us, managed to finish one. So, so tell us about your experiences. What did you think?
Yeah, so I think I would potentially sway towards Mos and say that it is one of the best Airfix kits we have seen in recent times. I think both of you have kind of touched on it. It is a very, in my personal opinion, refined kit. I think that is a good way to sum it up.
Yeah.
It makes sense how they've built up that kit. I would not say that it is actually the best Airfix kit as well. I think I've dabbled with it. It's an incredibly good contender, but there are just a few little minor points, which I'm sure we'll get onto, which I thought could have been ironed out a bit easier. But yeah, the fact that I made two in 2 weeks also is a very good demonstration. That is a very buildable kit.
Yes.
I didn't have to exert myself as much as I potentially thought I would. So it is a really impressive kit.
Yeah, it does go together very well. In stark contrast, it must be said, to the 1994 tooling, because I mean, the 1994 tooling, it's a lot simpler, obviously. Interestingly, some of the design choices they've made are actually the same. So where you cut the nose off, so I actually cut the nose off mine. I braved it and used the jig, because I wanted the pointy nose one, and I thought it would be good as well, because a lot of people have done the normal GR1A version. And I thought, well, let's go a little bit different and try that. And the jig is great. It's unfortunately it's plastic, obviously, so you can razor saw into it. I'm not saying I did.
Tell us how you know. Tell us how you know.
Tell me I'll tell everybody I'm a crap modeler without saying I'm a crap modeler. But that piece is actually exactly the same point at where the old 1994 kit has a nose that you stick on. So I actually used the new Airfix nose on the old kit because it's a better transparency at the end. So I just thought, I'm going to use that, and it fits perfectly. So,
brilliant.
So it was good. I managed to elevate the old kit a little bit using that. So. But what about you, Mos? You've built yours. Have you?
I've not finished it yet.
Finished.
Because this is as far as I got.
Well, that's pretty much together, though.
Yeah, it is. I'm at the point of, because I use flesh. I was trying to be cocky. I used Tamiya flesh on this because I wanted a richness. So I black basted it, and I used pink primer to highlight in between the panels, and then put this flesh on top. It's a little bit, it's not quite there, but I reckon once I've glossed it, weathered it, panel line, everything, it should take off a lot of the, it's a little, what it is, it's not as pink as it is orange, if you know what I mean. I wanted it a little bit more. But desert pink is an awful color anyway. I don't care what anyone says. I think desert, it is a god-awful color. I understand why they used it, because of, it blends well between light and day on the sand. I get it, but it is not a pleasant looking thing to look at,
It's a strange color. So I actually used the paint mixer. Casey unfortunately isn't on the stream tonight, but that we developed to get the right shade. Yeah. And I measured photographs of the actual aircraft. So Buster Gonad, which again I'll come back to later. It's an interesting choice. And I got the color, I mixed it up, and then in doing research I realized it's actually matched to a US color desert sand. And when I looked up the values of that, it was actually the same as I'd measured from the photo. So just like it was kind of good self-justification. It's just like, oh, okay, I did a good job. But then I also realized I'd wasted like an hour of measuring. I could have just looked the damn thing up. Just
a quick point on that was, it's also the color that was underneath it that they put on top would affect how it looks as well.
Because it's a weird thing, because I mixed it up and I did the same as you. I actually did the old kit in the sand, and I black based it first, and then I just used, built up in different areas to give some tonal variation. And it's weird because when you put it on, it does change, and the thicker you go, the more orange it looks, the more sandy orange, and the thinner and more pink it looks. It's a weird color. It
Very,
really is
very
strange.
weird.
And that comes through in the photos, right? And
but that's why
they got dirty as hell. So,
but that's why I said at the weekend at the model show when somebody asked me about it, there was a snow version, and I said watch Mach's videos because that snow version. They should have done that scheme, but they will do in about 2 iterations' time. You know, I think you dropped the gun a little bit.
Well, that's one of the things. You went a little bit off piece there, Luke, and doing the snow version.
I think we honestly, both of you almost hit the nail on the head there. I was doing the desert pink first, and pretty much as you said, when I was, because the way that I paint is also black basing. And I was doing the black basing and it was coming out grey initially and you probably saw it on video and I was like, what is happening? It was at that point where I was like, okay, we need to start thinking about a backup. So I luckily I don't know if you guys are the same, but I'll always probably pre-order about 2 or 3 of the kit to cover my own back because I usually make mistakes. So I was starting to think, okay, we might have to make another one, but luckily the desert pink pulled through and I'd already kind of thought, oh, there's a desert, there's an Arctic one. Sorry, I might have to do that as well. But yeah, the Arctic one, I was actually really surprised wasn't in that initial boxing. As
they never do it though. I think you'll find that Airfix will give you bog standard releases in their first iteration, and then give you another reason to buy that kit further down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've said this before, like the Sea King. You know, how many people have said, oh, I want to do an RAF rescue. You know, we get it. You will get it, but you're looking at a couple of years, like, you know. So,
having said that, Mos, I was surprised actually at the schemes in the box. You get 4 schemes, which is a good amount. But I unboxed the Hella kit first because obviously it was out. I had one last year. And looking through that, they've got 5 schemes in the box, and they're all different. Because the Jaguar does have, and it didn't actually, Luke, it didn't include an Arctic one. So, but it's got loads of schemes. The Jaguar is one of those things that did actually, I mean, it was deployed in different places. It also got a lot of different schemes. You got the Black Cat Saint one in there, which is a really cool scheme. I considered doing that one, but I thought that was a bit of a cop-out painting wise. They've got, the standard green and grey. They've got a desert one. They've got one of the more modern, like 2004 two-tone grey schemes, and another one. Can't remember. But a really broad, really good selection. Unfortunately, the decals are absolutely shit. So they screw it up on that one because the color rendition of them is just off. The blues just don't come out. But yeah, why do you think they went with 3 schemes which are almost identical?
Well, the person to ask is a Revel, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a question for Luke, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like an odd decision. I was a little bit disappointed. I personally think I would have been happier if they had done maybe multiple schemes in the desert pink with the different nose arts, because I think I know a lot of people were calling out for fat slag. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but there we go.
You just have
monetized
it. We've gone now. So yeah, I was expecting potentially maybe 2 of the desert pink and 1 wraparound, or 1 or 2 wraparounds, but yeah, slightly odd one. But as Mos says, I think we'll have to get Luke on the case for that one.
Yeah,
but I also think, Mos, you're absolutely right. It gives a lot of scope. I mean, the Jaguar has a lot of scope for future versions, and I'm sure they will do the Black Cat. At some point, I'm sure they will put a more modern one in. Hopefully,
if you go looking at the Indian Air Force.
That was it. That was the Hella one. Yeah.
The Chad colours. There's one. I think it's Gateland Marie or something like that. I looked at them. I was looking at them when I was doing the review on the box. Some Indian wraparound. The brown and the and the sand colour looks amazing. So you'll be seeing them definitely. And if they don't, there'll be plenty out there aftermarket with those.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for you to do that kind of scheme.
Mighty have a French one.
There is that pattern at the moment that Airfix are doing a lot of Iraqi, you know, what I call modern warfare, because we got the Chinook, didn't we, that had the that color as well for the, you know, was it Bravo November? They didn't do Bravo November as Sam, did they? I can't remember. It was a different, but no, they did Bravo November, obviously. But there is this modern warfare, or what I would call modern warfare, in the last 30 years. There's a lot of that going on. In, you know, if there is an option there, that will be in the kit as well, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the Jaguar is one of those kits that it is to a modeler a blank canvas, and will open up immense opportunities for them to release a huge amount of schemes. You know, I can see this being released every 3 or 4 years with another scheme that, you know, that's probably been asked for. You know, have already been mentioned in the comments. People have said, "Oh, we need to do it in this scheme." And same with the Sea King, same with the Gannet, same. You know, you can go back through and through the shit. You know, the Chinook. You know, they've released that one in a new scheme as well, haven't they? So, you know, it's. I think so anyway. But yeah, it's
just on that point. Moss has reminded me, if you guys have any questions or comments, please do put them in like capital questions or QQQ or comment. Just helps pick them out when we're gabbing away and getting distracted. I kind of forget the chat, and just having great big capital letters there. Don't put the whole thing in capitals, you don't need to shout. But it just helps to draw the eye, so that would be great. Just on the subject of schemes, actually, Buster Gonad was a surprising one for me, given that Airfix, you know, talk about aiming their kits for a fairly wide audience. You know, no photo etch to make sure it's, you know, kept down. And I was a bit surprised that, you know, it was Buster Gonad rather than, you know, something a little bit more PC, say like Johnny Fart Pants, maybe.
Oh, there's loads, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's got the word large testicles, hasn't it, as well? So, you know, they haven't gone in blind.
I mean, let alone the word. It is there. It's there. It's in your face. There's no getting away from it. I mean, I know when I was putting it on, it was quite late at night, and I couldn't even register what I was actually putting onto the nose of it at first. I was like, "What is this
thing?"
Yeah. So maybe it's so abstract that's how they thought it was going to be allowed. But who knows?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised at that one, but
I think there's a realization now that this scale modeling now is not a young man's game.
No.
And I've said this on numerous occasions, and you know, I think we had a good debate on one of our podcasts. The fact that when Airfix released the starter sets, you can tell that they were aiming for the 30 to 40-year-olds when they have the midlife crisis. They dream about owning a supercar. Well, they released 3 minimum of supercars in their starter set range, so that even if you couldn't afford to buy a Bugatti, you could at least build one. And it comes with the paints, the glues, and the cement. And, you know, and like I said, there is this cry of where are the young modelers. I'm not so worried about them not having young modelers in it per se. It's more like grabbing the adults before they get succumbed into playing golf or something like that, or fishing, you know, fly fishing.
Yeah.
Let's get them into scale modeling, and having risque sort of decals, because I don't think it was on the box, was it? I don't know. The scheme isn't out there.
No, because the angle of it was flying away and the side.
So you know, there's artistic license in that, but I think, you know, and also the stuff that we use now is not for children. The chemicals that we use, lacquers, the washes, enamel washes, etc. It's not for kids. So I wasn't surprised to see it, but I was surprised to see them go down that route, but I was surprised to see them go further on down that route than I was expecting, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
Okay, here's a question from Aries Styrene. Question: how does the Jaguar compare to the Meng F18F or E, since Mach Models has experience on all 3?
Yes, I do. Interesting question. That I think, in my personal opinion, they are very different kits. I think your Meng F18 is definitely a kit with a lot of finesse and a lot of detail, but it is very involved. It is a very involved build. I remember when I did mine, you know, the wheel wells and all this sort of stuff. There's a lot to be getting on with. Whereas the Jaguar, and do correct me, or if you have contrasting opinions, Airfix is still, in my opinion, has that twist of ease of build, if that makes sense. I don't think I've seen them potentially over-engineer anything to an extent which other manufacturers like Meng have done. So I think, to kind of answer the question, I would say the Meng F18s have that enhanced level of detail, but the Airfix Jaguar, in my opinion, is more buildable. And I think I've tried to convey this on the video. The Airfix Jaguar is one of the most buildable kits I think I've made on my channel, especially in the past year or so. It is exceptional.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answers.
Yeah, because I think companies like Meng, like Ryfield model, ICM, for instance. I mean, ICM actually say that they are an intermediate, like an experienced modelers company. That's their target market. Whereas Airfix, I think, are much more, as you say, buildable. They don't come with that caveat, if you like. You know, I think you could come to the Jaguar not having built that many kits and get a good result out of it. It is
definitely.
It's pretty easy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There are a few areas which are a bit fiddly, but that's kind of par for the course and comes with, you know, the detail you're going to get in a 1/48 scale kit. But yeah, overall, I mean, I found it, well, I think the first point in my video, the positive point, is it's flawlessly engineered. For me, the design of the engineering of the kit is, you know, second to none. You know, and it's Paramjit, isn't it, who's designed the kit, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, same as the Gannet, which for me still, I think, is a, you know, in that, I would say the Jaguar is certainly top 3 of the kits I've built from Airfix recently. I think the Gannet is better.
I think that is a major debate. The one thing which I would always say about the Gannet is that nose weight problem. In terms of, I know for me personally, the amount which you had to put in there in quite a small area was quite intense. Of course, the Jaguar, you can't really compare it to it because of its geometry. It naturally sits on there. But yeah, I think I remember when I did the Gannet, I was building this up and I was at that point thinking this is the best kit without a doubt which Airfix have made.
Yeah, I mean, I used roofing lead in my Gannet and I didn't have any problems. So,
yeah,
but I did use I did actually use the little bin as well, which, you know, Airfix abandoned because they realized that most people wouldn't be able to get, you know, stuff in there. But yeah, roofing lead just cut flat and then just stacked in there. It's the density, isn't it? You've got to get that density.
Yeah, exactly.
The trouble is, I've not built the Gannet, and there's not any real reason, but I spent more time watching the likes of Sully build his and all that. So I never actually built the Gannet. It's still there in the box. But for me, the engineering of the Jag, you know, for instance, it sounds like a really daft thing, but how many times have you had to put the bulkheads inside the fuselage? You're doing one half and you've got it sticking out and you're in that ridge, but it might just be slightly off. Maybe you haven't trimmed it quite right. It's slightly off. When you put it together, it's not going in the ridge on the other side and you're having to balls about with it. But then to have the fingers link it in, but, you know, 2 halves and then link it in that, you know, that's epic. And I'm just thinking of all the kits. I've never seen that in a kit before.
No, I haven't
that
either.
Gives it that internal strength, doesn't it? It's incredibly.
Trumpter.
I have seen it. Yeah.
Trumpeter have done it actually.
Yeah.
I did see on a Trumpeter kit. Yeah, they have done it, but not to the same level as Airfix. I'll say that definitely.
Yeah, because those. Sorry,
I did find though that the fingers they take a little bit of fiddling around to get in place, or was that just me?
That was you, because I did it and it was bang.
Okay.
Okay. Because I watched your video after I did mine, you see, because I was halfway through building mine. I thought, I'll watch yours. So as I was there buggering about, and I noticed you there fiddling with it, and I was like, well, I never had that problem. It just went. Seriously?
I'm not too sure. It went together eventually, absolutely fine. It was just a lot of the old, like the kind of shimmy action that you usually do to get things
do it wet, isn't it?
Yeah, I was doing quite a lot of that, and
I didn't glue it either. I didn't glue it. It just like slotted in, and that was it.
Oh, I didn't glue either. I was only gluing on the exteriors. But yeah, also on that kind of topic, the fitment of the wings onto the fuselage was just, oh my goodness, it was exceptional how well everything kind of slotted together. I was contrasting it to the Buccaneer like a year or so ago, when you had that, it was still that front nose section which slotted onto your main fuselage, and it went together, but it was a bit of a trench around there. If any, I'm sure you guys have built it, haven't you? Whereas this one, everything just felt so much more refined, and it was a really enjoyable experience. That build, really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think the cockpit and the wheel wells, the way that they fitted to the fuselage, I mean, the wheel wells in particular. I mean, because generally, we've all built wheel wells, and you put them in, and even if it's a good fit, there's kind of a little bit of wiggle room, and you just have to make sure the two are aligned. Whereas these, you've got that little locating hole that goes on the piece with the fingers, and then the whole wheel well goes, and it's quite a complex curve in places, but it's perfect. I mean, it's like there's no even like 0.1 of a millimeter out, or certainly in mine. And it was just like, you put those in, because I actually put them in several times test fitting, and it just worked. You just think, a bit like the Gannet, do I actually need to glue this? And then of course I lashed liquid glue on anyway, just to make it absolutely solid. But again, the cockpit and the lower front undercarriage bay, you put it in, and it's got 3 locating pins along the side. And that piece along the back of the cockpit, that wall, that's where in a normal kit you would think there's probably going to be a bit of a gap, a little seam there that I'm going to have to just run some, thin sprue goo or something in there. But again, there was nothing. And you think that's really, if you think about it, it's incredible. And especially when you are doing the 1994 kit alongside, and you have 3.5 millimeters on one side of that wall to fill and nothing on the other. And you just think, yeah, I remember what this was like.
Yeah, we're spoiled nowadays. We're spoiled, I think.
Yeah, I had to do real modeling on that 1994 kit. I wasn't happy about it.
We got plenty of sprue goo anyway.
Yeah. A few more questions have popped up, one of which I think we've answered a little bit. Graham Ball says, Alex and Luke disagree that this is the best kit. Can you say why, and also what Airfix kit is better in your opinions? So I've kind of answered a little bit of that from my side with the Gannet. I don't know, Luke, if you've got any addition to sort of the better kits.
Not particularly, but I think it's always an incredibly difficult topic for me, at least, to say what is a definitive best kit from someone. I would definitely say that the Jaguar, as you said, is in my top 3, but it's hard to split it between the Gannet and for me also the Sea King. I think the Sea King is an incredibly well put together model. And they all have a few of their little kinks and stuff like that. So I'd put them all 3 of them almost on a level playing field. It's just that they've created a new level, a new standard, haven't they, Airfix? So as long as they consistently hit it, they're all the best kit, aren't they?
That's why I never actually said it was the best kit.
Yeah,
I just said it could be, or to me,
Well, hang on. I'm just going to go and fact check that.
Fact check it. Is it the best kit? You know, I'm putting the question out there because if you want to know one of my favorite builds so far this year is at 148. It's that 172nd Chinook from FX.
That was an impressive kit.
Do you know,
For the scale,
we're talking
impressive.
148 here. If you want to go back and see what you think's one of the best kits for me was that 172nd Chinook, just because of how it went together. There was I found no issue with it, none at all.
So on that note, then I'm going to skip ahead to a question that I was going to ask kind of a bit later on in terms of what it means for. No, it's great point, Mos. Of what it means for Airfix in the future, because you mentioned the Chinook. What do you think that means for the Wessex? Because that's a 1/72 scale kit. To me, from the renders and everything, and I said this at the time, Mos, to me, that was the astonishing release announcement from Airfix. The Jaguar was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. We all suspected it. You know, that's good. But the Wessex in 1/72 scale as well, the amount of detail they seem to have crammed into that is incredible. It looks.
Definitely. The thing that I mean, I was the same. I looked at it and I was like, wow, that is potentially one of the standouts of the year. I feel like everyone could almost sense the Jaguar coming this year, so it wasn't incredibly surprising when it actually happened. But the Wessex, in that scale, I'm intrigued. I'm a little bit not worried, but it looks like there's an insane amount of detail on it. And in my opinion, at least, Airfix isn't known for having the sharpest of molds. And I think that's a valid point to say. It's not a criticism, but they aren't known for having incredible fine recessed details, which in that scale is a necessity, in my opinion.
I
mean, the 1/72 scale Eurofighter, the starter kit, the detail on that is very refined. The exterior detail, obviously, interior is a little bit limited. The kit has some other issues. It's not a starter kit.
Or the Typhoon, or the
Typhoon.
Oh yeah, you're Typhoon.
Yeah. I mean, but the way that goes together again is slightly unusual, which may create some of its issues. I'm not sure. But we're seeing now the way that they're putting this Jaguar together. It's not 100% conventional, but it's pretty conventional. But it all makes sense and it goes together very well. What do you think we can expect to see from Airfix now? They're starting to almost become more adventurous with their design, but also make these, kind of stand out, very, very accurate, very, very precise toolings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very exciting time for Airfix. I think they've definitely over the last 2 years and 2-3 years have definitely shown what they're looking to do, and they've definitely built upon that. One thing I was thinking, and as it's a very good way to say, it's quite an abstract way to build a model. Building an Airfix one nowadays with the fingers and with the different ways that they put stuff together, it's great when it works, but when it doesn't work. And I personally would potentially be worried that they don't overstep that mark and start doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff when it could have just been a simple sort of job, if you know what I mean. Like, I like the fingers, but were they completely necessary? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pick at that scab then.
Okay.
I can get my notes out now about things that actually, and again, we're nitpicking. Well, I'm nitpicking here. This isn't like to say that the Jaguar is a bad kit. And spoiler alert for the video, my recommendation is you buy the new Jaguar kit.
Yeah.
Not
really?
the old one.
Yeah. Well,
I'm mind blown.
It's a breeze.
Are you a modeler, or are you just a put together? You know what I mean?
But there are a couple of things which are kind of like would give me pause, right? Or I think I wish they had done this instead, and it would have elevated it from. I think it's like an 8 out of 10 kit. I think it could have easily been a like 9, 9.5. And I have a list.
Oh,
So the first one is the one that a lot of people have mentioned. I know you mentioned it on Airfix and Chill, and I couldn't be there to argue about it. But it's the cutting the nose off bit, right? So Airfix provides you, as Paramjet often does, because he provides you with lots of jigs. There's a jig to drill holes in the little shoulder piece as well, and there's a jig to cut the nose off. To me, including a jig, which is a sizable piece, and including the nose, two halves of a nose, you've got 4 pieces there, which make up on the sprue about the same size as just molding a new nose.
But it isn't though. That's the thing. I've asked the question twice, and the answer was clearly that people don't realise that front section, that nose, is slide molded.
But I thought Airfix didn't use slide molding.
I've always used slide molded. I can't say that's a lie. The biggest failure of a tooling is slide molding. And when we had the debate about the Spitfire Mach, the Mach 9, the 124th, they use slide molding at its necessity, and also I think was it Chris who said that it could time 3 times the price on that section? It'd be 3 times the cost. So for them to do there's slide molding in the nose and in the fuselage. That's it. It's all slide molded. For them to do it again for just one scheme.
But if you hang on a second, technical point. If you've got slide molding in a mold, that is for the mold.
Yeah, but you've got the nose as well. You see.
Yeah, but the nose is on. The nose is on the same part as the jig.
But you would have to do it twice. Well, they looked into it, cost and failure. To do it twice, it wasn't worth the aggravation and the cost. It's easier for you to get a jig and cut the nose off, and it's
easier
not
for them, yeah.
But also, yeah, but you've got it. They have it. I agree that Airfix kits aren't the cheapest, but because of how they do their series, series 1, series 2, they're all at a price point. And they didn't want to push that Jaguar into the next level price point, because as you go up the levels, because of legacy, the price points jump per level or per series.
I'll come back to price, because I accept your argument.
Yeah,
I don't agree.
Yeah, but
I think they could have. I think they could have done that. I don't think it would have added a huge amount of cost. You could have separated the nose out into a separate mold in the same way that they had the.
With me and Nigel had the same debate. Now, Nigel worked in that industry, and he told me slide molding is expensive, and it's another.
It is, yeah. But one mold, just doing the nose pieces, all slide molding. That's not a huge thing.
I'm not convinced that was. I don't think that was the option. I only heard, as I said, I asked a question I was given. I think is a very valid.
Anyway, okay. Reason. We agree. We agree to disagree.
I agree to disagree on that. But also on the same side is that's only one. There's kits now that are being released today from certain manufacturers where they don't even. You're paying a lot of money for a certain kit, and they haven't given you a second set of undercarriage doors. You've got to cut the door down the middle to create an open door thing. And that kit is, for me, it puts it into that £30 mark, and I think that's quite expensive. If you know what I'm talking about, but to keep it under that £60 mark with that extra price of the tooling and the failure rate of slide molding, if it fails, it's because of that. I think that they've done right in choosing that. And who's to say that later on down the line they won't even bring out that reason for using that GR1 nose? You'll have a scheme just have the GR2,
which is another point from me, right? Because it's only used in one scheme.
Yeah,
in the box. So for me, they could have easily, because the way the kit is designed, it is designed to have a replaceable nose. You are given 2 pilots.
Yeah.
There's only one reason you would have 2 pilots, and that's if they're going to do a TR version.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is a separate nose. So you could just also do a separate nose for the GR1 release it as a separate version later. Job done.
But naturally, who's to say that they won't? I think we briefly touched on this earlier, didn't we, with Airfix recently spanning into other things other than British. And I think I'm right in saying that the French use the GR1s a little bit more frequently, without the kind of glass nose bit. So maybe that's something in the pipeline. I'm really not too sure.
I doubt they would. Again, just from a commercial point of view, thinking about it as a product manager, if they've already got a GR1 option, why would they spend? Because they would have to be a separate tooling now for that nose, which is a lot of additional cost. So anyway, I just think it was a curious decision. I would be interested to see the business reasons behind it. I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity for me personally, because cutting the nose off, it works. It's not a super ideal solution. So even with the jig, you don't get it perfect. I was very careful, and you still, it wasn't quite flat. I had to sand it and do other bits. And I know the arguments of people have said, "Oh yeah, well, this is standard modeling stuff." And things. It's like, yes, you're paying 60 quid for this kit, so it's like,
but then
it just almost feels it's like a little bit of grit in the oyster,
I look at that and say, yeah, I kind of get that, but then don't buy it then. That's at the end of the day, Airfix produced a kit that people wanted, and everyone that I've spoken, I'm saying that now, but a lot of people that have built this kit haven't cut off the nose. They are really happy with that Gamby skin, if you know what I mean. They're going for that, and sometimes they have to make these decisions at a commercial and a level where they've got a price that they're given they're in a business, they're budgeted a certain amount of money, and if that would have pushed the budget over that tooling, in theory they could have said, no, we can't do it, we won't release it because it's going to cost too much to do. And slide molding is expensive.
I get that, and as I say, I'm not trying to drag the kit down. It's just, for me, that was a kind of like a kind of
but as I said, there's lots of other things that we've had to do. In terms
of us being independent, video YouTubers.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, talking to other people, that's what I would say. I'd be like, well, if the GR1 is especially what you want, it's just, it's slightly disappointing.
Well, it's funny you said it, because everyone's been wanting a trainer Spitfire, and for years we have been buying aftermarket and cutting the cockpit wider and longer to fit in the extra bits, so, and then now we've got one coming because people asked. It's I think sometimes you're never going to get, as soon as they released as I said, the Sea King, everybody moaned it didn't have a yellow scheme in it, and they did, obviously, but you don't have to buy the kit. You can wait until they do release the kit with a yellow scheme in it if you wanted it.
Or you can just do what I do and just build it anyway, and just
build it anyway. Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah.
But I think one thing that I would like to put on that is, as I personally have seen aftermarket sort of people starting to do slightly bigger projects, like Edward doing the Gatling gun for the A10, used to say that someone doesn't just come out and do the GR1 nose as a resin extra. I mean, it'll probably be easy enough to sort of take away, because the fitment is so good on the kit as standard. So
I think that's absolutely valid, but again, I come back to the point of, if I spend £60 on a kit, am I then going to spend another, well, it'd probably be like, for resin cast nose, probably at least 20 upwards.
Yeah, probably more like 30. But how much do you love the GR1? That's my question.
Well, it would be enough to cut the nose off and be careful.
We've gone so far when we used to mark up a Mark 1 as a Mark 5, just with the decals, you know what I mean, and the colour. We didn't worry about the edge of the wings. We just wanted that particular scheme.
Oh, and I said these are small points. I mean, otherwise it would be a very boring
Yes.
Especially if we just all say, yeah, it's great, and that was
Yeah,
well. What do we do for
I
that?
don't know. Martin Mountfield's not very keen on the Jaguar. It sounds like, coming by his comments. And unfortunately, mate, we're going to keep talking about the Jaguar because the actual the title is Enter the
title
Jaguar.
of this was discussing the Airfix Jaguar. So
if you don't want to, you can watch another stream, mate. To be fair,
if we were talking about other things, people might complain we weren't talking about the Jaguar. Okay, so a couple of other things. I mentioned the pilots. I mean, Airfix aren't great at pilots. Do I say that?
I think, yeah, no, I was a little bit disappointed, to be completely honest, with those pilots. I think I just thought everything was so crisp and so perfect when I was looking over the sprues, and then you got to the pilots and you're like, oh, okay, we'll keep moving on. It was weird. It was really weird because, as I said, everything was so lovely, so refined, and it just seems that that had felt very rushed in my personal opinion.
Well, and they're very static. You know, they got their hands on their laps. You know, they're doing the toilet pose.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to use the pilot anyway. And the other thing that people have mentioned doesn't really bother me because I never build aircraft in flight, but there is no wheels up option.
There's no slats up and that sort of stuff either.
Yeah, the slats up, I think, is well, I mean, they're full. So for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know this 2 weeks ago before I did research on the Jaguar has full span Fowler flaps. So it doesn't have ailerons like a normal aircraft. It actually uses its tail surfaces, which are fully movable for roll.
I got told off in the comments about that because I called them ailerons.
Well, now you know, though, Luke.
Thank you very much.
We all got told off.
But yeah, generally, when you see a Jaguar, the inner flaps do actually are often deployed at the maximum is, I think, 45 degrees. The outer flaps generally aren't, but you don't have that option in the kit. And I thought that was a bit of a same with the leading edge slats. You can't deploy those in either, which again just felt a little bit odd more than anything. What do you reckon, Mark?
I'll butt in here because the complaint they had was the Buccaneer was too expensive, right? And if they had, because it wasn't a case of just shutting doors and everything. It would have to be another tool, another sprue of parts so you can have it up. Again, it would have pushed the cost of the model towards that Buccaneer price. Was the Buccaneer at 79 quid? Is that right?
Was it?
No, it was originally 69.99, I think.
Yeah,
people 74.99.
74.99.
And then it went up to 79.99, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of backlash on the price, and I think that they were, very wary. They know what they're doing. I believe Airfix know, they can see, they see what they sell, and they know things aren't selling that well with pricing. And I think with this kit, because of everything that needs to be done on that kit, like a different nose, having different, parts that could be moved, etc. They said that, a lot of the choices that they made were purely on a cost level, and trying to keep it at that certain price point.
One thing which it's not really a thing. I think price is definitely it's a very subjective topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we can go round and round in circles about the price of it, but from my point of view, I think in comparison to the Buck, I think it is very fairly priced because the Buck is a very big chunk of plastic. That is a big model, and there is a lot going on. I'd say more so internally with the Buck than there is on the Jag. So I think the price is the price, isn't it? It's when you really get everything out of the box and you look at the plastic, I personally can see the difference in price, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the Buccaneer, I didn't understand the outrage about the price of the Buccaneer, given that at the same time, Tamiya released the Phantom, which is a comparably sized aircraft. It was more expensive And you could say, oh, but it's Tamiya, the detail and stuff. That Buccaneer kit is fantastic. And, it's just like, even if you say, oh, well, it's not quite as good as Tamiya, it's like, well, it's not quite as much either. It's 20% less.
Yeah.
So, it's like, and if you're, either you're an American fan or a British fan in terms of Cold War jets or everything, but people tend to have a preference. And the Americans are probably going to buy the Tamiya F4, and British people are probably going to buy the Airfix Buccaneer. I think they are pretty reasonably priced, both of them, for what you're getting. The Buccaneer is a big aircraft. Compare it to the Jaguar.
Big time.
But people look at 148 price. That's what they do. That's the trouble. They look at 148 and they see a specific price point. But I didn't hear. So people have complained. I've seen it on there that there's no wheels up option. But this I never saw that debate when Tamiya didn't give you that option either. They had a wheels down option, and that was it in one of their kits.
But that's an unfair sort of conversation because it's Tamiya. They can do no wrong. Here we go for hopefully another year, another F-35. We won't complain, will we? We will accept.
We tell you what you want to build.
Exactly.
This year it's not much.
Yeah.
No, this year, 5 years, Alex.
It's going to be the F-35I this year. Mark my words. They're going for it. I'm telling you.
Not if Trump carries on with his tariffs. Nobody will be able to afford them.
That's Japan, not China. It's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, that brings me kind of to the other point that I kind of mentioned in the title, and that is about what it means for Airfix, because, you mentioned price there, Mos, and a lot of people, we get a lot of kits now from the likes of Riffield Model and Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, a lot of Chinese companies coming into the market, making very high quality kits for pretty reasonable prices. There might be comparable prices with more pieces, more options. Where does that leave Airfix when they do have this, I think, unfair legacy kind of issue with them? The Airfix name is both a bane and a boon.
Yeah.
And they have this price pressure, so that they can't price like Tamiya, because if they do, they get lashed back like on the Buccaneer, which then brings these constraints, and then they get criticisms of like, well, you haven't got the options.
I would like to say that I think manufacturers follow Airfix. So if Airfix put their prices up, we all then shoot them and throw, torch and burn them for that. And then other manufacturers think, oh, Airfix has done it, we'll do it now, while the lasers pointed at Airfix. Because I've seen a price rise in Revell. I've seen a price rise, the Helikits. The newer stuff that I saw, the prices were a little bit rich, but when it comes to pricing, I think that you model to your wallet. Going back to the pilot thing, I know we said that the pilot was pretty poor in this, but I've seen crap pilots in new kits from Revell. Even pilots are always under. Under they think too highly of a pilot. But then there was the argument that Airfix had, and it was shared, one of their videos, that you go around a model show and 99% of kits that are on show, they don't have the pilot in the seat. They want the pilot open and the wheels down, not wheels up. So, and to be fair, you can pick up pilots now for about £6 to £8, if you want to put a pilot in it. But again, it's the costing of that. But I do feel that Airfix, the reason I've gone for 148 and not gone to the 132nd scale in my model building is because of price. I think 148 for me is a good, £50 for a kit, and I'll get 3 to 4 weeks entertainment out of it is good. But I feel that moving on a bit more into the 132nd scale, where you're, like the Qatari Spitfire 132nd is touching that £80 mark. That's when it starts for me. Thinks, maybe it's a little bit too rich for me to go into that. If you see what I mean. But I don't know. Do you feel the same? I just feel that most of us just do 148 and we're happy to pay money for 148. But when it comes to 132nd or even 124th, where you're touching the £100 to £150 mark, a lot of us kind of shy away from that.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of gravitated towards 148, not because of my failing eyesight, but actually because the value proposition of a 48 scale kit. You can buy a Tamiya like Corsair in 48 scale for under 20 quid, and it's a fantastic kit. Edward doing the same. Airfix kits vary, but £30 can get you a de Havilland Vampire. That's a nice kit. And if you want a 72nd scale kit, they're quite often in the £20-25 mark. And you think, well, same or thereabouts, I can get a 48 scale kit, which I can put a little bit more detail in. It's not hugely like increased in size, so storage space and everything isn't that much different. So, I kind of gravitated to that. You start going 32nd, it's like, okay, you've doubled all dimensions. So it's a lot bigger. And I think if you're going to do that, for me, it comes down to like I'm going to use the Airfix 124 scale Spitfire. That price point, the Mark 9 and the Mark 8 now, you can do so much with that. If you're going to make a statement piece, that's going to take up that much room, then for me, it's like, well, why would I buy the Qatari Spitfire when I can get more detail, arguably? The engineering is great in that kit. It's not perfect, as no kit is, but it's beautiful, and it's like, I don't need to have every mark of Spitfire. So I don't care that the Qatari Mark 1 is the most accurate out there. It's like, that's fine. I actually prefer the slightly, the mid-range Mark of Spitfires anyway. So, yeah, to me, it's that kind of bang for your buck is 48 scale. And there's a huge range in there, of course. If you want to go all out, you can buy more expensive kits, or you can add aftermarket if you wish, 3D printed, whatever. And if you're going to go statement, then it's easy to go to like an even larger scale and still not go to like the £200-300 mark that unfortunate ship modelers have to do when they want bigger kits. But what about you, Luke? What do you think?
I think for me, I it's kind of backpedaling a little bit, but I briefly touched on this earlier in terms of when it comes to brands. With Airfix, you know what you're getting, and that isn't a bad thing. That is something where everything is. The instructions are going to be brilliant. I've seen a few comments in chat about instructions, so I thought I'd drop that one in there. It will go together, and there is an awful lot of thought behind this. Going to the Chinese manufacturers like your Trumpeters, like your Mengs and so on, whatever, they are incredible kits, but they don't feel as potentially thought out and potentially thought about the subject as much as that comes across in the Airfix kits. It feels very much for them, it is a business point of view, and for Airfix, like you said, because they have that whole brand and the historic element of it, there is a level of commitment and emotional attachment to what they produce. I think that's a valid point, and I'm not saying that Airfix is perfect in every way, shape and form, and if that is a potential justification for the price differences, but it is potentially a talking point and something to think about.
I think I think it's a really good point, actually. I think it's the passion of the designers does come through. I mean, again, I've said this many times before, but that's what struck me most about the Seeking, the open day that they did, was the passion of the people involved, and that comes through in the kit. And like you said, Luke, that kit is. I mean, I don't like helicopters. I've built far too many helicopters of late. Manufacturers, please stop making good helicopter kits because I don't want to build anymore. I've got to have to build the bloody Wessex, and it's tiny.
There aren't that many good ones, though, Alex, to be fair. There's not that many good ones.
Yeah, but they've all come out in the last year and a half.
It's been a crazy year for helicopters. I mean,
Yeah.
Trumpeter especially have been pumping those things out at the moment. I mean, I can't say if I'm 100% on board with the quality of them, but they're coming out nonetheless. They're coming out.
But yeah. Anyway, one thing you mentioned there is the chat, and I've been very neglectful. So
I just was one really good comment from Graham Bell at 8:56 p.m. I just saw it then, and I think he's cottoned on quite well to how I see Airfix. Can you see that Graham Bell near the bottom? It is 8 minutes 56 p.m. It is.
Hang on, I've got a star about. I'm at 8:30.
Yeah.
I'm usually about half an hour behind the real life, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just bear with me, guys, because I just need to.
So I just say what he said.
Yeah, please do.
So Graham Bell went CCC. Airfix just need to keep promoting their current quality, appearing at as many shows as possible with examples and pushing themselves forward. Tamiya are no longer the only dogs in this fight. I think a fair statement, to be fair.
I don't know if for me personally, like kind of backing up what I just said, they're two very different manufacturers with, I think, two very different purposes. I mean, it's definitely a talking point. I think the point which I personally get out of that is Tamiya are very absent in the modeling community. However, if you look at how Tamiya are built up, I don't think models are their main sort of financial.
It's not
aid, are they? So why would they?
Somebody put 14% down. The rest of it is their accessories and their radial control. But the radial control is not just radial control. It's the everything. They've got the little special racers. It's like a scale electric track, but you just let them go on a track and they spin around and around.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And but I'm just I'm saying that in regards to Airfix as a scale model company, where Tamiya is a model company that that do the there's other areas pushed out, if you see what I mean. They've got other arrows in their quill, sort of thing.
Well, to be fair though, then you have to include the Hornby group, because Airfix isn't a company; it's a brand within a company. Whereas Tamiya is both a brand and a company.
Yeah, but I don't see. Whereas Airfix have got their set budget, Hornby have their set budget, Scale Electrics have their set budget. I think Tamiya is just one big pot. And where they're making money, and there's no denying it, their RC models are creme de la creme, and there's a lot of profit in that side of it. I can see them releasing more, and if you see their releases, they'll release 8 or 9 times more radial control stuff than they do with scale modeling stuff.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee it won't be one pot of money.
You don't think so?
It will automatically. No big, especially Japanese companies, just don't work that way.
They don't.
It is one pot of money, but they'll allocate it according to budgets constrained on the divisions. So,
fair play. Okay, I was just assuming that's because
if only it were that simple.
But yeah, I get that. But see, Hornby have their own marketing team, Airfix have their own marketing team, and Tamiya don't have a marketing team. I never associate Airfix to Hornby. It's sad. I know but I never do. I just see what Airfix are doing.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people see Hornby as a separate entity and still think of Airfix as a company.
Yeah.
But then here's my question for you, or something which I want to talk about. Does Tamiya, for their modeling department, do they need an actual marketing department? Tamiya kits still sell, don't they? Airfix need the push with the marketing.
They have a very good marketing for Japan in their country.
Well,
yeah, I guess, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Airfix are UK based. They've got their, and they're pushing here.
You've also got to remember the history of Airfix, though. going bust in, what was it, 81, having what the you've got Borden and oh god,
Plato, no, Pluto, isn't it? No,
all these companies owning them. That was in really, and they've mainly been in Western markets, and that's where the sort of dirty laundry was aired over the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. So they do have reputation to build back up effectively, and they've been doing that for a long time now. And still, I mean, Moss, from comments on your channel, I don't know if you get them, Luke, but there are still people who just hate Airfix. It doesn't matter what Airfix do, they will rag on Airfix till. I mean, I'm sure there are for Tamiya as well, but Tamiya doesn't have the same like fall from grace, if you like, that Airfix is perceived to have had through those.
Well, can you say perceived? I think if you put kits against kits, I think people have their right to be like that, but I really don't think there is any need for them to retain that potential negative aura around Airfix. I think they should take every kit as it comes, and I've definitely seen from the Jaguar that people are still not taking that kit for what it is, which is a very, very blooming good kit. And there's still, like you said, the Airfix brand is now a brilliant thing, but it's also like it's Airfix. So
that is a great segue, thank you, Luke, for me to introduce some of the comments that I have neglected. Apologies, everyone. So Graham Bell also says, I've not built an Airfix kit for years, then bought the 148 Seeking and was amazed at the quality, easily on a par with Tamiya. Or Tamiya. I'll say it in various different ways. Please don't say anything in comments. I won't respond to that. Dutch Dave also says the Ferret was also good.
Yeah.
Which I think everybody here would agree to. This is a good one. Pete McDub says, what aftermarket would enhance the Jag? Looks like a great kit out of the box. I will mention one, and it's my other little gripe with the kit.
Here we go again.
There's no harness. I really wish they'd just put a little plastic piece in that you could put in, which would,
But they want us to use the Michelin Man looking pilot.
I don't want the Michelin Man. They're going to be sprue goo again. I'm going to start a short series, which is Airfix pilots from each kit going into sprue goo. That's a promise, okay?
All right.
But that to me would be the obvious one, is some form of harness, because for me the ejection seats by themselves are actually pretty damn good.
Definitely.
Either version, the late or the early version. Again, I stole both because the ejection seat in the old kit is bad, so I just stole the late version.
Something which I think would be a really nice bit of aftermarket would potentially be some exhaust cans, just because I think they would really look quite good. The Airfix one's brilliant out of the box, without a doubt, but I know I've used those Detail and Wonder ones for the F35, and wow, what an improvement they are. It's just they feel so much I don't even know how to say it. They just look good, because exhaust cans and all that whatnot in plastic is a very hard thing to do in my personal opinion. So maybe just a little bit of a helping hand there.
What about you, Moss? What aftermarket would you think it would enhance it?
Yeah, well, when I saw the initial renders of somebody who'd built the cockpit up, I was like, there's no aftermarket needed here. Of course, if you want to, you could enhance it with some, photo etch, cockpit detail, obviously. I think you're right about the cans at the back, but resin's always been king for that anyway. If you think about it, if Airfix wanted to make it the most, their business is plastic, not 3D resin. But say if Edard picked up that plastic, they would have done resin this. And also I think if you wanted a pilot, dare I say, I think there'll be a good aftermarket idea would be to have the pilot molded into the seat. You know, some really good, really good resonance.
Heresy.
Yeah, rather than mold the pilot into the seat, have it all as one lot. I've seen some really good ones. In fact, I've got one on my desk here for a friend who asked me to get in some flanker ones, or molded in, so they're molded into, and they absolutely look fantastic. But other than that, I can't think of anything really. But then again, I've not finished my build, so until I've actually finished it and had a good look, I don't know. But I said it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think they've gone for it big.
It depends what you want from your build. I mean, yeah, you could add, remove before flight tags. I've just thought of another point from my list. Well, it's the remove before flight, and then I thought, because you got the FOD guards supplied in the kit, which is nice, right? But they're kind of essential because there's nothing behind them. I was really surprised, actually. There is no ducting in those air intakes at all, so you kind of have to use those FOD guards, because otherwise, or do some scratch building or stuff.
I mean, I don't know. It's pretty dark in there. You'll be fine.
If you want to win a competition, you're gonna have to do something.
It's fine.
So, I mean, out of the box, it is a great kit out of the box. I mean, for me, I probably wouldn't even go for the cans, because of all aircraft, the Jaguar, because it has those sort of shrouded vanes, you can't see too much. Aftermarket resin stuff is going to look better. 3D printing will look better, but unless you're actually detail examining them, you're not going to notice.
No, I've just thought one thing which I wouldn't mind is on that topic of detail and wonder. They do the landing gear legs with all the wires and stuff molded in. They look pretty cool, especially with like the kind of, I don't know, Jaguar landing gear is a weird looking thing anyway. So, but I think they look pretty cool.
I think the designer did a good job doing them that way, because by what I've seen, like on your video. In the instructions look quite complex, but the way you put them together look quite easy. So
I was a bit worried about the landing gear, because there's like about, I don't know, 14 pieces it seems, but it all does go together really well. And again, a massive improvement from their prior kit, and it looks really good. I think a couple of wires you could add, and it would be, that would make it look nicer, and very simple to do. I probably wouldn't buy aftermarket. I think it's like with the value of the kit, isn't it? It's a cost benefit kind of analysis. And for me, there was enough in the kit that some thin lead wire, and those look great.
Going quickly one or two steps back to the price. If you're okay with the price of the kit, or if not, what price do you reckon it should be? That's what I would like to know. Do you reckon 60 quid?
£16.99. £16.99.
Seriously.
Just stick one scheme in it, mate. See, people don't realise how expensive decal sheets are.
It's a shame when they miss off decals as well.
Yeah,
they're not expensive if you print them like Hella do.
Yeah, but that was the thing. When I first went to Airfix for their Creator Day 4 or 5 years ago, I remember, after I did my rant about that they should get rid of Humbro and just call it, design a new paint and call it Airfix and be done with it. Get rid of Humbro altogether.
They used to have Airfix paint.
Yeah, they did. But that's before the Hella days and the Hornby days. But I still talking about vintage classics, and people don't realise that the actual decal sheet in a vintage classic can cost more than the plastic in the box. And
really?
And that was a big thing. And these decal sheets, they cram them full in that size, and there's a cost involved in that. So they wanted to cut down cost as well. I suppose they could even just give you 2 schemes, but they do give you the option of 4. And was it the Spitfire that had 5 schemes in it? Was it it was a big, a lot of schemes in that.
But then my question for you is, you have people like Furball, don't you? And you can get a Furball insanely huge, sort of decal sheet for sometimes like £15.
Yeah.
And they have an insane amount of schemes in them. So is it because they're a furball buying more on bulk, or is it?
I would like to say that I think licensing becomes an issue in all this. Airfix have to pay for licensing, where those guys probably when you say that, oh, I want to I'll buy a bike, so I asked God for one and he didn't give me one, so I go and rob it and ask for forgiveness later. And that's what happens with the likes of Gecko and that. They put out these kits without and Airfix pay for that license for using that brand, that name, those symbols. Where I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying that there's that cost involved as well of using certain symbols and names and whatnot. There's a licensing in that. So I'm not saying that the other companies don't do that, but I'm sure that if Airfix go to them and say we want to use your name, they think an Airfix is a big company. We're going to charge them this amount, and these other guys might not be charged the same. You don't know. There's a lot of factors cost wise that go into producing the kit. And who's to say that the plastic that they use is a bit more expensive because it's a premium plastic? We could discuss that to next week, because I think we can talk about quick builds in that regard, with plastic. But I still feel that depending on their pricing, how much it's costing to get the tool made in China, is all these added things before they've got to pay Adam Toomey for the art that he uses on their boxes. They've got to have a graphic designer, so then they've got to pay to market it. There's a lot of cost involved that some of these companies don't have those overheads, so they can price things cheaper.
No, of course.
Yeah, well,
isn't it, Alex?
Hobby Boss and Trumpeter are by far the worst general box art in the industry. I mean, I know we can also cite individual examples of worse, but generally, Trumpeter and Hobby Boss box art is garbage, isn't it?
But Alex, I guarantee there'll be a price rise with Revell kits when they go for top opening boxes, because they are the most expensive boxes to house your kits in.
But aren't they satisfying?
Yeah.
I'll pay that top dollar.
I can say it's an interesting question you asked, Luke, about how much should it be, and it's the eternal thing. It's the optimum price for any product is one that the consumer is prepared to pay and feels happy with what they've got. Now, I think that's going to be different for different people, and you can only go on the normal bell-shaped distribution curve. You'll always get people who are ecstatic, no matter what that price is, to a certain limit, and people who will always be unhappy, even if it was $16.99. I think they've got it broadly correct. I think it's on the higher end for the Jaguar is not a huge aircraft. It's reasonable.
That's what I was trying to kind of poke at.
But it's kind of, it's on the smaller size of an average strike, modernish strike aircraft. And with the lack of those options, it's kind of, I would have been happy to pay another £5 and had all of the options. But that's just me.
Oof.
So,
I don't know. I think for me personally, when I'd finished it, I was like, oh, is that it? It just felt very, very small.
Because it was easy to put together. You've not had to really think about it. And that's the beauty of it. There's some kits that you can there's certain kits. What was it I built? And it involved rigging. And I think I got the build done. No, it wasn't rigging, it was decals. What was it I built? And I built it in about I'm trying to think which one it was. I built it in about 4 days. It was really simple, sprayed it, bomb. But I spent nearly a week doing just the stencil on it, to the point where I was like, I'm really getting tired of doing this. Was it the tornado I did?
It's one of the reasons that I have, as is my want, science background and all that I have an Excel sheet that I fill in when I do reviews, both unboxing and build, because it removes some of the subjectivity. It's still, obviously, there are some subjective parts in there, but it kind of, at least it standardizes stuff. And I did that for both the Jaguars, and the Airfix one, in terms of price, scores a 1 out of 10. And the and basically that is on a spectrum of 148 scale kits. I am the sort of nerd that went out and looked at, what is the price range of 148 scale aircraft and what is the median and, all of that kind of thing. Whereas the Hella kit gets like a 5 or a 6 there, but it doesn't save it. It's still like the Airfix kit is an objectively better kit.
Can I ask if that is that against every single 148 first kit, or is it more niched off into jet aircraft kits?
It's all, I didn't go
because
I had to do all the scales and all the subjects. So there's a certain amount of blur.
Yeah, okay. Because I was about to say, because I was just thinking that I was like, I can't think of many 48 scale like jet kits in that sort of sense, which are that far off the mark from £60. I mean, of course, you have your trumpeters where you have like, and hobby bosses where you have the occasional £25 Raphael and that sort of stuff. But yeah, other than that, they do all now seem to sit around that £40 to £50 mark, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, the Hella kit is so the gift set version is 34. I think the Bear kit is like 30, so it's half the price. And when you've got the two finished, they both look like a Jaguar. From the 3-foot rule, if you actually look at them side by side in the tooling, you can see there are physical differences around where the air brakes are and the engines are slightly different. And I'm absolutely 100% sure that the new Jaguar kit is accurate because they scan them, they do all the CAD work and all that. So I know that is a better Jaguar. But if I didn't know the Jaguar as intimately as I now do, I didn't know it intimately before. Looking at 3 feet, both of them, they both look like a Jaguar. Now, I've had to put a hell of a lot of more work into the 90s kit, which I really didn't want to do. And if it had been my own personal build, I may not have. But that's where it sits for me. If that's the kind of thing you enjoy, maybe the Hella kit is, well, I mean, it's the Airfix kit, but in the Hella box. Maybe you're happy with that and buy some aftermarket for the cockpit, and that's your choice. I would still buy the Airfix kit, and I'd recommend the Airfix kit.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to recommend that Airfix kit.
But I probably wouldn't buy another one.
Oh.
And that is, I think, one of the...
You're talking Jaguar Hello or Jaguar Airfix here?
Airfix.
You wouldn't buy another one?
It's at that price point where I think I've done that now, and I don't necessarily feel that I need to do another one. I have no burning need to. If it was, I don't know. Well, if it was 50, then I might be like, I'll buy another one and do that. But it's kind of on that cusp of it's fine, but it's only just fine. If that makes sense.
I think for me, if I was not ridiculous and I didn't do the Arctic one straight away, when that comes out, I probably would be inclined to go and build that one because I think it does look really, really cool. And especially, I think we can all agree after going through that building process, it is something which all of us would definitely go through again, disregarding price, I'm in a biased point of view because I absolutely love that Arctic scheme, and honestly I would love to do one of the grey ones as well at some point. So when the GR3s and whatnot come out, I'm sure I'll be hopping onto that. So I would buy one again pretty much, but there you go, that's just me.
Anyway, they'll be in the sale anyway. Give it a year.
Don't say that.
They're in the sale. You've got to imagine that, there's, as I said, I look at it from all aspects, and in business wise, and this is a new tool. This is £90,000, £100,000 worth of tooling, easy. And they've put one bloke to design it. And going by what I've heard, 18 months worth of work has gone into designing and tooling, making sure it's perfect. Airfix is a bit like Skoda, if I can say it that way. Skoda cars now are some of the best in the world. Even the cop cars, they've got rid of their BMWs that were catching fire and are now catching you on the motorways in Skoda VRS Octavias, like, you know, and they're 40 grand cars or 35 grand cars. And it's that reputation that Airfix have had, and it's no fault of their own. You're talking going back all those years, and they you know, I think their best decision they ever made was to say, if we're going to do scale modeling and we want to get it right, we need to guarantee that decals are going to lay flat on our tooling, on our models. And they went to the best decal maker in the world, Cartograph, and they put them in the bottom. That was their first change. And then they started to, then they said, we're fed up of people, you know, of bullshitting the customer by putting old toolings that's been around for 50, 60 years in our red boxes. No, we're going to put them and release them, you know, one at a time as vintage classics. Then they decided that they're going to design and build new tooling for some of the kits that they've had long before, and, you know, and new stuff, and look into other markets, because their tanks, you know, 135th tanks is overgrown. It's a massive market. So what have they done? They've pivoted and saying, we still want to be in that weaponry area, so we're going to do the Ferret Scout, we're going to do the ambulance, we're going to do that in 135th. If you look at the decisions that are being made by Airfix, there's a goal to be one of the top manufacturers. And at the moment, for me, and get rid of this Airfix fanboy, because I give them shit when they get it wrong. And you know I do. But, and I do get, there is a bit of a cult like, but Airfix are English. I'm an English person. I've been building them since I was a lad. You know, they've been in my life for 40 years. So I do have a pink tinted look towards them.
There's nothing wrong with being
but that you see their trajectory. Hornby, as the overall brand, see the benefits of looking at how we can improve on this and that. Their starter set range, they're not doing what other manufacturers do, get an old tool in, put it in a box, put a few paints and glue in that, and then send it out as a starter set or a beginner set. No, they invested in 14 tools designed with low part count, looked at the paints, made sure that they don't dry up, you know, redesigned the pots and put them at a price point of between 14 and 19 pounds, so that if you do want to build something, there's a kit for you with everything that you need. You know,
so here's a question then, Mos.
Yeah.
Did you have any QC issues in your kit?
What, in the Jaguar? No, somebody said there was a mark on my canopy in the video, but when I rubbed it, it was already gone. I think it was just a bit of dirt. But
what about you, Luke? Did you have any in yours?
Yes, unfortunately, I did have one or two, which I felt I was going to pick them up on it, but I did not. The first, the big one, which is for me was a little bit inexcusable, was on the Desert Pink Jag. You have your two Zs on the tail, which are not present on the decal.
Two Fs.
F.
It is.
My apologies.
Yeah. 161.
Yes. I have no clue how that can make it through to a final production sort of thing. For me, I thought that, especially when you have the person who's building them for the pre-release going through them, how do you not realize that you don't have those decals? I don't personally get that. And the actual proper quality control issue which I had was on my Desert Pink Jag. No one's managed to pick me up on it yet, but I don't have two of the gear bay doors because they were both short shot.
Really?
Something to that extent. One of them had half of it gone. The other one was kind of a bit warped looking. So I thought I'll leave them off. So those were my two little slight issues. But yeah,
I didn't have that. The Cartograph one, I was missing as soon as I saw it, two Fs, I had no short shot, but in all fairness, my last all the purchases I've had off Airfix, I've not had a short shot. I think we call it the Flory Cass. Have you heard of Flory Models? Yeah, you listen. But 4 years ago, every kit they gave them to review, there was a short shot.
That's
I
crazy,
cannot, and I will put my hand up and say this: the QC is fucking embarrassing, and that is not. See, I say it's not an. That shows you that the company they're using doesn't give a shit, because that company that they use sends out or designs and puts out every bit of Nerf in the world is made at that factory. I've never seen a short shot on a Nerf gun. Do you know what I mean? I think that
wouldn't tolerate it.
yeah, but and they do other stuff as well. Short shot is my biggest gripe, but because they know they've got that slight issue, I'm not saying slight, but that issue, they are shit hot when it comes to customer service. And I've heard people say, "Oh no, I've not heard that," blah blah blah. But when people have gone to it, they've said, "You're right, Mos. That customer service, I give them the little. I did a video on it. Give them that little label on the back. They will ship it to you free of charge." And there's been a couple of people that've had a few issues, but not because of a new release. It was like things like they've had in their stash for 4 or 5 years. There's not a lot they can do about that. And that was because they'd re-released the kit since with a new scheme, and the people at Hornby didn't realise it was the same kit. But they always now put things in motion so that if you say, have you had the Stuka that you bought 5 years ago, you started to build it now, it's missing a part or a part's bad, they can say, oh, the latest kit is this one, that's got the same part, just send them that. So that's being moved into. Short shot goes across the board, because I've got a main kit up there, which has got a short shot in it. And I've got no recourse there because, who do I contact for that? So yeah, there is that in mind. But yeah, QC is Airfix's.
It's their Achilles heel.
heel.
Yeah. One other thing which I briefly want to talk about, because it's kind of on that quality control aspect to a certain extent, is they still in your instructions, when you have those absolutely massive ejector pin sort of stubs, especially on your landing gear. Why are they there? And why can't you get rid of them? It feels like wow, it's a beautiful tooling. Oh dear God, there's huge spikes coming out of my landing gear.
It's been on some of the other kits as well, hasn't it? Well, I think was it Gannett or Seeking, yeah, it's been on some of them. I mean, they actually mention them in the instructions.
Take them off. You're like, oh, okay.
You're talking about like on the wheelbase, you got the big ones which have like half moon ones.
Yeah,
they need them in. Right, I'll tell you the reason what they're there for, which is what I think they're there for, is to stop the sprue being pushed off the machine. So they're kept to basically they have to pull them off the machine. That's why they're there for. So I'm just dropping down into something, but it keeps them still on the tool so they can take them off manually so they don't drop. I've asked somebody about that, and
so is that to kind of help cover them for the Indian production then?
No, when years ago they were like it, because my mother worked in a production factory. I've actually worked in a car.
You didn't used to get those on Airfix kits.
No, it's a new thing. It's like it's a new. I know it's a new thing, but I've seen them now on air. But they tell them to cut them off. But I think they're there to stop the just falling down, so that when you open the machine and you just take them off without them dropping, if you see what I mean, because the pins go out and they go back in again, don't they? And you're left with the kind of falls. That there just keeps them on the edge, so they can then manually.
That's what I mean. Have they designed that in? So
but
no, because the Indian production, they don't just like have them ejecting into a big tub. There's
other ways of doing it, but that's one particular way. I think it's Bandai have their own sort of lugs that when because they use machinery, don't they? Have machine, the claw comes down, grabs it, and takes it away. That's another. It's another manufacturing way of doing it, I think.
But for me, if you were designing them in, why put them on the back of a part? What is stopping you from putting them maybe on a sprue gate or something like that? Do you know what I mean?
There's got to be a reason for it, and I think it's to keep the actual mold in the machine so it doesn't fall down.
Maybe,
There are
but
ways, yeah.
but for me personally, I'm not saying it's inexcusable because it was a quick like 10-minute job to make sure it all got sorted out, but it just it feels cheap. It feels cheap. I've said it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It feels
And
cheap.
I think that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, kind of as the overall thing with the Jaguar is, as I said, I think the Jaguar is a fantastic kit, but there were just those little niggles, and it's just like, from a customer point of view, and putting my business hat on, and from the other side, you don't want to have niggles, right? So with the Gannett, other than the QC issue I had, I didn't have really any niggles with the kit. Same with the Sea King. I had niggles with the Eurofighter starter kit, as a lot of people did, and I had kind of niggles with this. And it's just, I think that if Airfix can sort out I guess it's customer satisfaction, isn't it? How do you feel after you've built it? Like you said, Luke, you kind of built it and it's like, oh, it's only that big, but I have a £60 hole in my wallet. Compared to, well, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Whereas you buy, I don't know, a Ryefield model Challenger or something, which is 36 quid, and it's just like a big chunk of plastic, and it feels cheap in terms of, or feels value for money, I should say, not cheap.
I think that's more of a topic for the modeler itself. For me, I'm sure it's not that easy to hide that I'm much more about the painting aspect of modeling. So if I can get through the build as quick as possible, it's 2 thumbs up for me. The only reason I bring up that point is for modelers who are far more into, the building side of things. It is £60 for really. I had both of mine together really within about 2 or 3 days. So I know that was a lot of modeling in a very short amount of time, but nonetheless, pretty crazy considering you can get a £20 Edward weekend edition and it ends up taking me about 4 or 5 days to put together for £20. So
I mean the 1994 tooling, I started both kits in parallel on my bench at the shop, and I was doing them, obviously I'm doing them in quiet periods between people coming in, and I generally found I was doing bits of the old tooling whilst the Airfix kit sort of sat on one side, and then I would do the Airfix equivalent piece, which would take 5 minutes, and then I'd be back to the 1994 tooling because bits didn't fit properly, or I had to wait, and I had to do sanding and fill pieces and stuff. So it was kind of a relief when I got to the Airfix bits, because I was just like, okay, now I need to do the same thing here, like the undercarriage. I need to build the undercarriage. It's like, beep, 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 oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Hella tooling, well, the Hella produced Airfix tooling, it was just like a chore. The whole thing felt like a slog, with the Airfix bit as light relief in between.
Just when you talk about that Edard kit that you said you picked up for 20 quid, you've also got to remember that when Edard did that tooling, that's a 6-year-old tool, that was 2019. They've released it so many times in those 5 years. They've totally, I think there's been like 14 different boxings of that kit. So they would have made their money back 3 times over on that tooling to be able to then, what we've made. So now when they release it now, they've not had to factor in that price.
No, of course. And my apologies if it came over as a negative.
No. I'm just saying that that's how I generally see these new kits. That when they do get first release, they're at this certain price point, and over time they get less and less and less and less.
It was honestly, if anything, it's just a comment more towards the fact of, oh my goodness, modern kits are very easy to put together, and they're very, very quick. So, and it's more, I've seen many comments online of people saying like, oh my God, I got this kit £60 and I've already put it together. And it's it almost feels counterintuitive. It's like you've paid £60 for a very high quality of model, and you're sad that it's gone together well.
Yeah,
How does that make sense? So yeah, it's just
take away the enjoyment out of it, though, Matt. Because I, if a kit goes together for me, and I'm able to, for me, I'm not a fan of the build. I'm more the fan of the painting. So if I get it together quickly as I can, and then get on with the painting and put the decals down, weathering it, that's the joy for me. If I could buy a kit that was already made for me and I just have to paint it, that'd be even better, and at half the price because I haven't had to build it. That's even, put that in the mix as well. But I said, I built the Heller Ferguson tractor, and I had more pleasure trying out new techniques on that little piece of plastic than I did building it. It was a pain in the ass to build, to be honest. But I spent more time on the actual finishing of it than I did on the actual build. Again, that's another kit that's being released, and you can pick them up 2 in a box now for 20 quid. So yeah, it's
one of the advantages actually of doing the Heller kit and the Airfix kit at the same time is that you can massively improve the old tool with the bits that you don't use from the Airfix kit. So if you fancy if you fancy doing 2 Jaguars, buy both, and then they only work out at 45 quid each.
That's a fair shout. That I like that.
Because I mean, now the Heller kit is together. I'm same as you, Mos. It was a pain in the ass to do that, because actually the worst bit is at the front of the nose, because the 2 halves are not the same size anymore. And they may have been once, but now one is considerably wider than the other, like height-wise.
Shrinkflation, I tell you.
So I think it's the starboard side is too big, and there was a bit underneath. I actually, to start with, like no word of a lie, I thought it was a fin, because it's this kind of like semicircular piece on one side, and I thought, oh right. I was really careful about preserving it, and then I was like thinking, what the hell is this? It's not on the Airfix one. I looked at my reference. It's not. It's just a big lug. It's like, but it doesn't look like flash because it's a millimeter thick.
Oh my god!
So I had to carve that off, and it's just like, oh wow.
Yeah.
But now it's done. Yeah, I'm looking forward to weathering the crap out of Buster Gonad.
Yes.
Because it was you look at those Gulf War Jaguars, and they got filthy.
They did.
Big time.
So that's going to be great, and now it's done. And the bits that the Airfix kit added, like the front of the nose and the stores, I'm using the fuel tanks from that, just elevate it a bit, So it's like, it's not a bad thing to do. I am aware a lot of people have made comments and asked questions, and I have ignored. Well, I haven't ignored you. I've starred them all, so I'm going to quickly run through some here. Comment: the only alternative way of doing the nose, multi-cut point, and then include the 2 nose options instead of the jig. That's a valid point, Gary. I'll do comments first because they don't require interaction from us. Pilots in kit have been generally bad for years. They seem to be an afterthought for lots of companies. Interesting. Cost model builders, I think most.
Yeah.
Put my teeth in and get my eyes reading properly. Most model builders don't use the pilot because they don't do figures. A Morph 48 is a sweet scale in size compared to 132nd.
There is a braille option, folks, in the comments for Alex, so he can just run his finger across.
Please. Comment: I'm picking up a 124 scale Spitfire on Saturday. We'll go with the 124th Hurricane I have. Enjoy. So fantastic kit. The only fly in the Airfix ointment is the Hornby distribution as well. Yeah, that's that's another topic entirely. But yeah, appreciate that. Somebody says, Aries Stein, sorry, Mos, Airfix will never be Ramia. Is that a new kit?
Hey,
the distribution is UK centrist. Canada is still waiting for the Jaguar. Tamiya will release worldwide at the same time. Yeah, there is. We've mentioned this before on Airfix and Chill and other streams about distribution.
But that doesn't. You say that, but distribution takes nothing away from the actual model kit.
No,
so,
it doesn't. No,
that's a.
Well, it does if you don't have the kit, I suppose.
Yeah, but then again, they are, you know, there's so much more they try and do. It's like a lot of these kits now are now on Amazon, so that you can now order off Amazon to get it across to there. I think there are other ways of doing it.
Don't open another can of worms, Mos.
Okay, I won't. Then I won't.
Keep them in the can. Keep them in the can.
Yeah.
Always remember that market price, which represents the value to the target customer, has little to do with cost. Cost reduction is always high on the production agenda, as this impacts profit. That's a very good point, James. Comment with regard to inclusion of pilots. I think there's a choice, either a pilot or mold, or include a seatbelt. Yeah, it would have been nice, you know, just a little piece that you could stick on representing, you know, some harness. Little thing, you know, and again, that's the kind of quality of life, that customer satisfaction. But if it had that, how happy would you make people, and how, you know, small is that in terms of design and production cost?
I'd be over the moon. I'd be doing double backflips without doubt.
That make me buy another kit. If the target market price is correctly positioned, you will sell all your projected stock. And that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, and I don't think anything we've said here will prevent people buying, and shouldn't prevent people buying the kit. When Airfix retools the 48 Tornado, I can see it being £65 plus. I mean, which is reasonable, right? Because the Tornado is quite a big aircraft, like the Buccaneer.
I personally can see it closer to 75, 80 if they were to do it.
I would expect so. Comment: the wrong file was probably sent to Cartograph.
Probably.
I've just been sent a picture of Buster Gonads' picture of the plane, and
if you need to go early, Mos, just say.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. There's no judgment.
Yeah, it does have GK on the tail, not FF, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Is that on the decal sheet? Is GK on the decal sheet? That's the question.
No, there's nothing. The only thing that they put on the decal sheet was pretty much FF was for a later variant of it, or later.
But you can have Y on the back though, can't you?
I think so.
Yeah, you can have Y on the back. They got the Y there, but not the FF. But apparently, these ones will be say GK on it. So interesting.
Craig says, sticking with Luke's thread on cost and time, it makes my 1/200 scale Yamato value for money, as it will take a year to complete.
Well, that one that Nigel did a review on, that Gerard Ford, you know, it's got like 8, 10 lots of photo etch with it and stuff. You know, the model itself is huge and he paid 150 quid for it or something. So if you're looking at that, you know.
But then does that also take into account the added frustration and impact on your heart from all that PE?
Yeah, PE. Who likes PE? Do you like PE, Mac? No? Yes? Are you in the same boat as me then? It should be a choice, not a compromise.
I completely agree, and I hate Trumpeter for it, continuously replacing stuff, because I don't know if any of you saw, but I recently did a Hui on the channel, and they had on the side of it, none of it quickly made it to the final model, not one bit. It all flew off. You had these lovely little hatches which were for like to kind of stop the door going. Within 20 seconds they were all bent out of shape, and I was like, they're getting ripped off. Yep. So if we can, plastic is the way forward. The only etch and stuff which I really like is 3D decals. I think they are awesome.
Yes. Watch your space for Airfix and 3D decals.
Cool.
Little Things Junkie says, toilet pose, you mean they're on their phones looking at Pornhub, or is that just me? I think that's just you.
I used to say they twerk. Hey, they're twerking.
Here's a good question from Paul Wiltshire Models. I have the Tornado GR1 in Gulf livery done. I have a Victor. Oh, no, sorry, that's not a question. It's a good comment. Toying with the idea of Gulf War scheme, the Jaguar would look awesome in the Gulf War scheme with them. Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question that I was going to put is this one from Craig. We have the Jaguar. Now, what do we really want from Airfix next?
Tornado.
I've got a theory. I have a theory
as well. So you go first.
With Airfix releasing the Typhoon in 1/72nd scale, it goes against really how Airfix release models. It seems like in recent times, the more important ones are done in 1/48, and then maybe down the line they'll be into a 1/7, like the Gannet. Wouldn't be surprised if a 1/72nd scale will come out soon. I reckon they've done the 1/72nd as a starter set Typhoon, and I reckon next year we'll see a 1/48 Eurofighter Typhoon, because it's coming to the end of life for them, isn't it? Isn't that the sort of thing? So I reckon before that, finally, before they, stop using the Eurofighter, Airfix will. I think they'll do a 1/48 either this year, 2026, or latest will be 2027 in 1/48.
I think there's definitely not a gap in the market, but there's a need in the market for it. But I personally would hedge my bets at a Tornado aside, 48 scale British Phantom.
That's a good shout. Did they not do a 1/72nd not so long ago?
Oh, they reboxed it, I think.
Oh, reboxed it.
However, I'll say it here first, so we can all quote me and say that I got it right. I really do see a British Phantom in the pipeline for Airfix. I think it makes an awful lot of sense, and there's a huge gap in the market because no one's really done one without having to hack the living hell out of it.
Yeah.
So for me, that seems like a very sensible choice. It will be something which sells incredibly well over here in the lovely United Kingdom. Everywhere else, I'm not too sure, but because it's Airfix and I'm sure it will be brilliant, it will sell. So yeah,
I would like to see a 1/35th scale Saladin.
That's on the cards anyway. Yeah, that's on the cards anyway.
So that's what I'd want from Airfix next. Aircraft wise, I'm kind of happy with what they're doing. It's I like the Licensor. It was unexpected. I'm happy to be surprised with Airfix's releases on that. So, but I would like to see them develop the kind of 1/35th range a bit more, because I think they're more than capable, and I think it would establish themselves in a different genre of modelers.
Yeah, something which I
they're not traditionally known for.
Yeah, something which I wouldn't mind seeing, which I think there's a little bit of a gap in the market. They do a nice range of World War II sort of ground vehicles and stuff like that. Maybe a few modern bits and bobs sprinkled in there wouldn't be bad. I wouldn't mind picking some of them up, because I keep on having to nab little Royal Navy tugs from Kinetic Harrier kits, which is quite funny. But yeah, wouldn't mind that.
Okay, here's one for you guys, because I don't know. What's the best 1/32nd scale Su-27/30 kit?
Trumpeter.
That is massive.
It's only Trumpeter who do it.
I think that's your only option. Right?
Yeah.
It is Trumpeter, yeah. In 1/48, you've got a plethora of them. Yeah. Oh, didn't Great War Hobby do an Su-27?
All in 48th. Great War Hobby literally never goes 32nd, because the amount of parts would be insane, especially from Great War Hobby.
I mean, if Tamiya did that kit, I mean, it would be 150 easily.
No, it would be more 200, I reckon.
200. Up.
And they tell you to have the wheels down. That's what they do.
Sorry, it's 32nd. Sorry, I was thinking 48th. God,
I got confused then, because I was thinking of Great War Hobby, because I think Great War Hobby is the best one out there at the moment, isn't it? At 1/48th.
I mean, there are some shocking kits of the flanker in 48 scale. I've done a couple of them.
Yeah. Good old Trumpeter. When no one else would do it, we'll just put something out there similar.
I tell you what I would like to see one of the Chinese manufacturers do is their new 6th gen stuff that they're
Well, I mean, Meng do the J20. Oh, is that 5th gen?
That's 5th gen.
That's 5th, yeah.
That new 6th gen.
That's old news.
That 6th gen plane looks phenomenal. I saw it on YouTube the other week. Honestly, it is. It makes the Typhoon look shockingly shit.
Well, there's two of them. There's the bomber stroke strike aircraft, and then there's the fighter, isn't there? Which
Yeah.
which looks like it's from Ace Combat. If you guys know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one I thought that was being referred to before with the Victor. What's your opinion on a Gulf War livery on a Matchbox Victor bomber? Toying with the idea. I think if it's
Go
what
for
you
it.
want to do,
Mm.
go for it.
There's a really good SIG, isn't there now, called the What If SIGs?
Hmm.
You know.
I mean, they had the K2 tankers out there, didn't they? So why not do a what if of the Victor bomber version?
Do you know what? Right, the way we're going in the war, I'm not surprised they've even looked at putting the Vulcan back in the skies. You know what I mean? You know, they're running on fumes at the moment, aren't they? You know,
Yeah.
so.
It's bad when we start taking Victors out of storage.
Yeah.
So just as a word on that, so the big stuff in the Gulf, like the Victors and stuff, were not in desert pink; they were in hemp. So, which is a BS color, whereas the BS381C color, whereas the desert pink is the closest match is an FS one.
Yeah. Desert pink.
Let's not talk about desert pink.
Let's not talk about desert pink.
It's giving everybody.
Everyone just feels very down. The entire mood of this, it just went down when we started talking about desert pink.
Following on for that flanker comment, where does the normal modeler put a 132nd or 125th aircraft? Above the snooker table?
It's as
good a place as any.
I think for me personally, I just keep on bringing them down to Hannants. Just there you go.
Leave them there.
Keep on pushing them off. Worry about them later.
Julian says, Airfix customer service. I've worked in a company that had alerts on individual accounts. Do Airfix know to treat some customers well? Not to dig at anyone, just asking.
I've got some experience of that because everybody said, "Oh, because it's you." No, I was at. We all had the same issue with the bomb bug, and there was a short shot on the bomb bug. I emailed them and said, "Hi, I've got a short shot here." I gave them all the information, and the bloke went back and said, "Which company are you?" You know, it's like, "Oh, hang on a minute." They're like, I said, "No." At the day I was at the Sea King, it was at the Sea King launch with you, Alex, wasn't it? And I said, I said to Dale, I've got this guy here, you don't know who I am. And he goes, well, he won't, will he? You know, it won't work like that. So no, I don't think it's because of that. But I have had people contact me saying they've had certain problems with customer service. Like one guy was in Germany and he had problems, and it was because his email address had put it into a special category because they thought it could be spam or something like that. But everyone I've spoken to that watched my video about explaining the process of gaining, and they've gone through that step by step, taking pictures of the part, making sure you've got that little white sticker on the back explaining where you got it from, whether it's from a shop or from their own website. Give them an order number, give them a little look at the receipt. In fact, you don't need the receipt even, because there's about 8 or 9 people who contacted me saying I didn't even have the receipt. I got it off Hobbycraft or something, and they sent me the parts free of charge. So I done things like that. I was told by one of the reps at the customer service that Dale actually went in and had a meeting with everybody that worked at Hornby's customer service and said, "This is what we do. If there is an issue, the customer is always right," basically. And and that was about 3 or 4 years ago. I've never had a problem with it. In the end of it, I've always got the part I need. But don't take the piss. If you're regularly ringing up saying I've lost this bit, and because you've lost it or you've damaged it yourself, you can't take the mick out of it, and they do have a record of what's being sent out. So after the 6th or 7th replacement of a new nose for a Jaguar because you cut it wrong, don't go ringing up looking for another one. You know what I mean?
Where did you hear that?
Alex has been blacklisted. He's been blacklisted.
Yeah, do they flag some accounts? Yeah, mine.
Yeah.
It's not for positive treatment. Okay, just one last comment. I know there are some that I haven't shown. We've kind of run out of time. But Steve Naylor says, the way things are going at the moment, we might need a new tool Saab Gripen with RF markings.
Mate, I would love Airfix to do a Saab Gripen. I really would. It's a phenomenal plane.
That is No,
and it's
no
quite small,
chance.
so it would be quite cheap, right?
No chance that's happening. No chance.
You don't think they would?
That is not anti-Airfix, but it's definitely not Airfix's sort of
They did a
way of.
1/72 scale one back in
Yeah,
the
they.
90s.
You got to remember that you wouldn't. Would you honestly think Airfix would have released a Ferret Scout 5 years ago? You wouldn't, would you?
It's quite Airfix though.
It is kind of Airfixy. In terms of like, I mean, we've oh my goodness.
All right, what about a MiG 17?
Yeah,
Be honest, all right, they already planned for that scheme with the what if, the American scheme. That's phenomenal. I love that scheme. It's such a good scheme. But who would have thought they would have released the MiG 17?
Look, at the end of the day, who knows? But it feels like a Gripen is much more of a hobby boss or a trumpeter sort of thing to take on, from my personal opinion. Maybe a Meng project. I'm not too sure. It just doesn't feel Airfixy to me, and it doesn't feel Airfixy to me. And I hope that I'm wrong, because I do love a Gripen as well. They sound.
The thing is, if Meng did it, it would have individual pieces for the can, so
they'd fit. They'd fit.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Ned Looney makes a point. Well, what else is there? And that is it. This is the reason why Hornby Trains did a new TT120, because they'd done everything else, so it was time to put something in a new scale to sell.
Yeah,
definitely. Oh yeah, Kitty Hawk did a 48 Gripen. Yeah, but it's Kitty Hawk, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
Kitty Hawk did a Jaguar.
We have hit the witching hour, so we unfortunately have to draw our conversation to a close, even though we could probably go on for a couple more hours.
Nice,
like in a podcast we used to do, 4 hours it take, but we'll get an hour and a half out of it. What I mean?
But thank you everybody for joining tonight, and for listening to us rabbit on about the Airfix Jaguar. I think we can all agree it's a fantastic kit. Should you go and buy one? If you like the Jaguar, you're not going to find a better 1/48 scale kit out there. No. So £60 might feel a bit rich, but I think you get what you pay for. If you want to go cheap, you can buy the Hella one. You get what you pay for. Just bear that in mind. I think it's a fantastic kit. I think, go and check out Luke's review of the build of the two. Mine will probably be out on Saturday, fingers crossed, following wind.
Don't look for mine, it's not going out. I don't know. I lose enjoyment building. I've done so many videos now that I lose enjoyment. I've gone back to just building models for me, not worrying about angles, not worrying about what the shot looks like and what.
So if you want to see Moss's, join his channel and watch on his private member stream when he's
I've been building on my private members feed as a live, but yeah, seriously, you won't see that on mine. But there's a place for them, definitely. But I lost the joy. There was a point I was like, I want to build this model, and I think it was the
did the joy go when you broke out the desert pink?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the joy went when I was halfway through building that bloody lifeboat starter set, and I was like, this joint, man, crumbs. Took that, and that was it then. And I didn't, because I spent so much time getting it right, forgot to film it. And then I was like, and then ever since then, I've just been building, and then maybe showing off my models. If you want to see one of my models built, you come to a model show. But the time and effort goes in, you do. I think you can appreciate don't ever diss a builder on a modeler who's done a build on YouTube, because what you see on that screen is probably 10 times more in time, effort, editing, working out a script, talking about it. And they're a ball ache to do.
It is a big misconception. I think all three of us definitely understand the ridiculous amount of work which goes into those YouTube videos in all aspects, getting your angles right, the amount of times where you're trying to put a part in and you're looking through a little tiny screen and it just isn't going in. And the editing itself. I mean, I know I spent last week, because it came out last week, Friday morning. I finished the model on Wednesday evening, went whole way through Wednesday evening editing, and up until 2 a.m. on Thursday editing. So
Crumbs.
it was a big push, but I wanted to get it out for the weekend.
Yeah.
Note to self: don't do 2 Jags ever again.
Yeah.
That was intense. I thought I'd learned my lesson after I did 2 Meng F18s at the same time. That nearly broke me, but there we go. It was the Arctic Jag.
Yeah,
we blame it on
It
the
has
Arctic
now
Jag.
become a theme for your channel, Luke. So if
You know,
want
and
to
then
see
so
models
you
at the
spend
same
all that time. You spend all that time doing a build video, and you get between 12 and 20,000 views. You do a video about some sort of crap thing that you see in scale modeling, you get 120,000 views, and you only spent like 15 minutes recording it, 30 minutes editing it, but the algorithm's shockingly bad. I don't understand how it works. You know,
It's on my worst.
So if you want to see my reaction video to Luke's video,
yeah, yeah.
It'd probably do better. That's the ironic thing.
Yeah. You were saying about your worst video? The
no
worst
editing.
Your worst build was your best viewed, I guess. Sort of thing.
Yeah. Big time for me. Blew in 24 scale spit. Awful from me. Awful, but there you go.
Yeah.
Right, guys. Thank you very much to Luke for being first-time guest on the Midweek Model Meet. I will link his channel in the description when I do all the editing bits of this afterwards. Thank you also to Mos for coming on once again. And thank you both
the Airfix flag, flying it.
for your builds of the Jag. And I say thank you everybody for coming tonight. Hope you have a pleasant rest of your week and a great Easter. Cheers, everyone.
Happy